This episode is proudly supported by Westholme Australian Wagyu. Here's Stephen Sinclair from Jackson's on George.
In general, Westholme, I use several items on the menu from them. I always look to source products for their flavour. And with Westholme, I think they deliver that 100%. Australian Wagyu, in particular, Westholme is world class. Westholme is recognised for their quality all over the world. And then that's why, and when I tried it, and I absolutely love the flavour. This is, why I decided to put them on the menu.
Westholme believe that when nature leads, flavour follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
We've just kept our menu pretty much the same for the last 40 years, I think. There's no specials, you come down, you've had it before, it'll hopefully be exactly the same as what you had 2 weeks ago. So that's what we've really focused on.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. We've had guests on from restaurants that have racked up 10, 20 and even 30 years in the industry, but today's guest is part of a multi-generational restaurant family that has fed Canberrans for 6 decades. Gavin Chan is the owner and chef of Happy's in the ACT. Gavin, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for inviting me onto your show.
It's great to get you on the show. There are not many restaurants in Australia that have lasted 6 decades. It's pretty extraordinary. How are things at the moment?
Look, they're pretty good. Like I'm very fortunate that my grandparents and father and uncle family did all the hard work in terms of establishing the business. Canberrans are awfully loyal to my restaurant. I think the one of the most humbling things for me is like I'm serving kids that I used to play with in the restaurant now with their kids and my kids, and as you said, there's not many restaurants that can do that, and most of my regular customers are like family to me, so it's pretty amazing.
6 decades is extraordinary. Take us back to the beginning. Who is Happy and how did it start?
Okay, so Happy is my grandfather, and the name came about because when he first came to Australia, there wasn't many Chinese people and he couldn't speak the language or understand the language at all. So it was quite typical. It came over because my family sort of dates back. So even before my grandfather Happy coming over, I had 2 other great-grandfathers and great-great-grandfathers that came over here to the gold rush and, whatever else labour that the Chinese came over for back in those days. So by the time my grandfather came over in the mid-50s, I think he came over as a vegetable farmer actually, and he went to Queensland and absolutely hated the mosquitoes, and I think in a way he came over here for a better life. Obviously, everyone was trying to create that generational difference to take the family to a new country. So he came over here, hated the vegetable farming, and then he met my grandmother Vi in Queensland, and they fell in love. And she was a Australian lady. It was quite frowned upon back in those days. I remember him telling me about how difficult it was to, do it. And then he moved away, moved to Canberra out of all places. He didn't like Sydney because it was just, you were stuck in that Chinatown thing because that's where all the Chinese people hung out. So he moved to Canberra out of all places. Canberra was just establishing back in those days too, and he saved up enough money over the time to open our first restaurant, which was actually in Queanbeyan. So that was in 1959 or 58, and that did quite well. And then he sort of branched out a little bit, and we had a few more Chinese people sort of joining him for work. And I think a lot of those times it was really hard to find ingredients. So it was all, try and get together what you could and make what you could with the ingredients you can get, especially in Canberra, because it was really hard Canberra was so regional then, it was so hard to get anything. And so he opened Happy's, 3 of them actually. So Queanbeyan, Lonsdale Street, and the one we've still got now in Green Place downstairs in the basement. And look, it's amazing what he did back in those days, because it would have been so hard. And his name Happy came about because he was just smiling all the time. It's all he could do was just smiling, serving customers. He was really outgoing sort of a person. Then he sort of slowly picked up the language. It wasn't great. Um, Even when I was young, I was trying to, like, he's going, stop speaking English, try and learn the Chinese language. And like I was going, but I can't talk to you because I can't understand it. It was like, he was a really funny guy, actually. And he did a lot of stuff his way. He was very, and I suppose you had to have a really strong personality to be able to do that sort of stuff back in the 60s. And yeah, so we've still kept that restaurant in the basement in Gruen Place. So we're one of the only. Well, there's not many basement restaurants still left in Australia, let alone Canberra. And it's only a little tiny restaurant, sits about 60, 50 people, and it's still prodding away. And I think one of the things that we like as a business that's been going for so long, one thing that I'm really insistent on is sort of like keeping the traditions of the business. So we don't rotate the menu or anything like that. We just keep everything as simple as we possibly can, because we know these recipes, these dishes work in our restaurant. So, and that's what people keep coming back for, I suppose. So, yeah.
I'm fascinated about the recipes over, multiple generations and keeping them true to the originals. I mean, what's it been like? Are you monitored from your elders about how the recipes are working? And, is there any stories about
the
that?
funny thing is, I started working, my brother and I started working in the restaurant when we could basically walk. So, there was one job that I remember now, and I really hated doing it. It was, we used to get prawns, and when the prawns would come in, they weren't deveined. You had to sit there with a skewer and devein 4 or 5 kilos of prawns every morning, like just going, on the weekends. And then we got tall enough to be able to reach into those big, deep commercial sinks, and they had to carry cans of pineapple and stuff like that we had to stand on to reach the bottom of the sinks. And look, it's always been such a family business, because it's one of those businesses where, and like, my father's not with me anymore, and God, that was a big hit to my life. Actually, it was quite sudden, and it sort of made me realize how much work he used to do in the restaurant. Like, he did a lot of the stuff himself 7 days a week. For years and years, actually. And when you're young, you sort of don't understand what your father's doing for you. It wasn't easy back then. I mean, we had, 17% interest rates and all that kind of stuff. And, business took a bit of a turn, and, he worked his ass off to put us in the position that we are now as a family. And we've always worked in there as a whole family. And Dad was very insistent, and he was very intense. And I think I've sort of carried that on, of how things are done, not taking shortcuts, and and that's probably one of the hardest things about trying to. And look, I've got a great team with me at the moment, but over the years, you sort of like, people sort of take a lot of shortcuts, and they don't want to do things your way, because cooking's evolved. Like, I'm not one to say that it hasn't. There's lots of technology and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of things that we've tried, and you sort of always go, well, look, I don't know if it's me, but there's just something missing, and maybe that's that bit of love that's missing out of the dish. Or I think one of the biggest things we do, and it's probably one of my biggest focuses, is like our master stock. Now, a lot of people have all different recipes for their master stock, but my grandfather, all those years ago, used to just put chicken, water, and just boil and simmer away for 16 hours. That's all he did, and we still do that every day now. Yeah, like every single day, that's what we do. So there's no vegetables, there's nothing else put in, and a lot of the Chinese cooking now sort of goes around like MSG and stuff like that, and it always has, but we've never used it. There's things, like oyster sauce that has MSG in there. There's, obviously other things, but we never actually have MSG in our restaurant. So that was one of our selling points. So, but that pot of stock that we do every day, it's hard work, but it's what my restaurant is. That's what it's all about, and it's yeah, it's very vital to us actually to have that.
It's such a unique restaurant to be multi-generational so many years. Do you feel pressures and an obligation to the past of the restaurant? Is that a challenge for you?
Yes. So I suppose you sort of have customers that you've known for a long time, and I think sometimes when you're having an off day or whatever it may be, someone says, "Oh, it doesn't taste the same as it does," and that really hurts. And then you sort of go back and have a look and see what we've done different or what it may be. Touch wood, it doesn't happen all that often. But, I think a lot of during COVID was one of the really hard things because a lot of ingredients and sauces that we've used over the years and oils and all that kind of stuff, all of a sudden there was a lot of short supply for a lot of different things. And that's when you've sort of got to adapt and you go, okay, well, I've got to keep making this because it's a pretty vital ingredient. Like, for example, there's a barbecue sauce that we make and it's comes from a factory in Hong Kong. And it's called, in Chinese, it's called Li Cheng Wo, and it's really hard to get now. Like it's impossible to try and find. And, sometimes you've got to think, okay, well, I've got to try and adjust it as close as I can with another brand and things like that. And so that's probably one thing that's been a little bit hard, trying to get the really traditional ingredients that we've always used in the brands and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully everything sort of, stays afloat.
There's a really beautiful image that you told us about of you and your brother standing on pineapple tins and reaching into the sink and deveining prawns. And did you feel like you were always destined to run and sort of work in the restaurant? Or
No. See, that was the funny thing. See, as you can tell, I'm very Australian. Like you can hear that in my voice. A lot of people still come up to me and go, "Hey, my God, I didn't know you were so Chinese, but you're so Australian as well," in the same sentence. So, I really enjoy the Australian way of life, and but my parents, as I was saying when I was younger, I didn't appreciate what my parents were doing for me. I hated it. Like I was a very rebellious child, so I wanted to go play sports and do other things, play with friends on the weekend and things like that, and I couldn't understand why I was stuck in a restaurant. I hated it. I did work in there a lot, and obviously I enjoyed the customer interaction bit and loved doing that and meeting people and things. And then I moved away from the family business. I sort of had a bit of enough of it and sort of moved away for about 10 years down to Sydney and did my own thing down there in retail. Deep down, I love Canberra. I love the Canberra way of life, how it's such a big country town. And I had my first daughter down in Sydney, and like it was just, it was always traffic and trying to get back and see her and all that. I had no family support down there. So we decided to move back, and mum and dad at that stage everything just fell in. Like it was crazy how it all worked out. And like mum and dad and my uncle were thinking of retiring from the business and stepping back a bit and said, "Look, do you want to take over it? Because if not, we're going to sell it." And I said, "Look, I've got nothing to do now. I really want to move back to Canberra. Let's give it a go and I'll see what it does." And, mum and dad helped me out and we transitioned and everything like that. And they retired and I thought I'll do this for a while. And, look, I just fell in love with it again. Like the thing that I remember was like, I hadn't been part of the restaurant for about 10, 12 years. And the customers that were coming down were greeting me like we never sort of grew apart. Yeah. And that was the best thing. I'm going, oh, God, I can't believe these people are still like such a part of the business. There's people there's an old man that I've known since I was a really little boy, and he used to come down for lunch nearly 4 or 5 days a week. And I'd go, "What would you like today?" And he'd have his rotation of dishes. And, you just don't get that these days, and it's just, that's how I sort of fell back in love with the business again. And you sort of look at it and you're sort of like, well, you know what? I really like this. I'm starting to like this. I'm falling in love with it. It's really good, and then you sort of take a step back and you realize what your family's built. And you sort of want to keep building on that. and it makes me immensely proud to be like such a part of the Canberra community, that we've known so many families and stuff like that. So that's, yeah, I just fell back in love with it, and here I am still all these years later.
Tell us about that transition period where you came in to sort of take over and your parents retired. And were there challenges with you finding your feet?
Very, very, very challenging. So I never really paid any attention to when Dad was trying to teach me how to, make the sauces and all that kind of stuff. And so I was more looking after front of house when I came back, actually. And Mum and Dad was still sort of part time in the kitchen, and we had a team of people sort of working for us there. And it wasn't until Mum and Dad sort of took a step back, like really step back, and I sort of realised that I really got to take a little bit more ownership in the kitchen and stuff. And that's when I started really started racking my dad's brain about how to do things, and just observing. Like I never like. So I came back in 2007, and I never really touched a wok until Dad like retired in 2012. So yeah, he never held my hand for anything. Like we sort of just watched and learned, and like when you're going full pelt and the dining room's full and takeaways are coming in, like you got 4 or 5 burners all going at the same time, and you got to learn how to use them properly, because you got to have one cooking, one getting heated up, and then you got to rotate, and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I stepped in the kitchen, like on a hot summer's day, to realise, geez, my God, my dad did this for like 7 days a week. It's 40 degrees temperature outside, and it's about 60 in here. Oh my God, like it was. That's when I really stood back and appreciated how much my family did for us. So, yeah, challenging.
Canberra's culinary evolution has been pretty extraordinary, particularly over the last sort of decade. And your family restaurant has been around long before that, but through this big change that's been happening, what's it been like for you, running sort of an icon and a legend of the industry here, but seeing this evolution?
It's Canberra's food scene has always been good quality, I would say. So we didn't really have like, we're always a little bit behind in the concepts and the trends. So it takes a little while before things catch up to us in Canberra. And it makes me immensely proud to be part of it, actually, because there's so many businesses now seeing Canberra and going, wow, Canberra really knows its food. And I've always believed that it has. Like we've always had quality here. Whereas when I moved down to Sydney, I sort of thought there's a lot of places here, heaps of places, heaps of choice, but there's not many good ones, and there's not many consistent ones. So for us, it was always about remaining consistent. It wasn't about, because we can't really do too much with the size of our restaurant kitchen and the age of the building. So we've sort of really focused on being consistent and delivering that same taste, same experience each time you come to our restaurant, same speed, same service. So that's really worked for us. And competition's always good. It's and during COVID, I think one of the best things that came through COVID was, like, we got together, we sort of good too, but ours is a little bit different, you know. So Chinese cooking's like that. Chinese cooking's very unique in the sense that everyone's got a different ingredient, everyone's got a different way of cooking it, but it's your way. So it's the honey chicken's quite unique for our restaurant, and we sell tons and tons of it. So
you mentioned that the recipes have been passed down. With the evolution that's sort of happened in Canberra, have you added sort of new dishes? Have you sort of been tempted down that avenue?
No, I haven't. I haven't really branched that avenue just due to the size of our kitchen. Like, it's just so small, and it's really hard to do that. And as I was saying before, it's like I think that was another thing that sort of Dad sort of taught me, where you sort of go through these phases, and they, like there was a phase, and I think I really remember this in the 90s when everyone was doing Luxes. It was like the biggest craze, and every second customer was coming down, oh, do you do Luxes? Do you do Luxes? And I used to ask him, I go, Dad, why don't we do a Luxer? Like, you know how to do it. And he goes, yeah, but you know what? Like, if they really want a good Luxer, go to a place that sells the good Luxer. We do a good combination short soup. And that's one thing I really took from him, that he goes, don't just do things for the hell of doing things. If you don't have confidence that it's you're going to do it the best that you can. So we've just kept our menu pretty much the same for the last. Basically. If it wasn't for them packing the takeaways and serving customers, we'd be shot, because the borders closed. We had no workers. It was a very, very tough period, and they regret this now, but I remember this really clearly when I was when they were very young, 8 and all that. I used to go to work on a Friday night, and in order to get out of doing chores with mum, they used to come to work with me. And they still to this day, they regret it because I used to teach and stuff. I go, mate, okay, don't come here and stuff around. This is what we used to do. And then, okay, you don't have to devein prawns. You don't have to go wash dishes, but at least stand at the bar and scoop a bit of ice for drinks and, say hello to the customers. And then they slowly sort of got the hang of it. And, I still got a photo on my phone, and it makes me so proud that when I still remember my oldest daughter, Rachel, taking that first order with a customer when she was like 8 or 9 years old. Going, hello, how are you? And I was going, oh my God, this is amazing. I remember I was so shy when I was that age, and she's still doing it now. And like, she's like my eyes and ears outside now, because I spend a majority of my time in the kitchen, and my wife's out there as well. And that, I always feel that you've got to have that personal touch out in that dining room to be able to have the good service and the good food. So I've never forced them into, I've never said you must take over. Mum and Dad never did that to me either. And I said, look, I don't care what you do in life, just give it your best shot. One saying that Dad used to say to me, look, I don't care if you go drive a garbage truck, but try and be the best garbage truck driver. So yeah, it's I don't know what's going to happen in a few years. With all the development, our building's so old at the moment. Who knows what could happen in 5 or 10 years' time? But you just got to take every day as it comes and enjoy every day.
You've made such an incredible impact on Canberrans' lives. There aren't many Canberrans that haven't eaten at Happy's. What's your sort of plans in the next sort of couple of years?
I think the time for just focusing on what we do, there's no point for us in a way expanding. I think I've sort of missed the boat with that. And I didn't really want to do it either. We had opportunities when a couple of the shopping centres opened, did redevelopments and things like that. And I think Dad always said, look, it's really hard to get things right in one. How are you going to try and get things right in two? And we sort of, for whatever reason, we sort of missed that expansion thing. But now I think we just really got to focus on what we've got and just keep delivering consistency and good value for money, and just, continually just serving Canberra the way we always have.
Well, the impact has been extraordinary. And, a family that's multi-generational and impacted so many generations as well. What do you love about what you do?
I love turning up to work. I love having the impact that we have, as you said, on Canberra, and being able to celebrate the milestones with the families and going through their ups and downs. There's people that I've known for so long that we've become good friends. We don't go out for drinks afterwards, obviously, but when we see each other again, it's like just old friends catching up, and most of the time I really wish that when they do come down, it's not that busy, that I can go out and have a chat with them and catch up and see how their lives are going, how their kids are going, what's going on with their kids. And, that's the part that I love so much. It's like, it's not so much it's more personal to me. Even now we do these lunchbox specials, and we get so many customers coming down to do that, for $12, freshly cooked, not out of a Bain Marie. And, to be able to stop and have a chat to those people, that all these new customers we've got, oh, hello, which department do you work in? That means a lot to me. And I might not remember names very well, but I remember a lot of orders, and sometimes that sort of stuffs me, oh, there's a chicken and cashew nut guy, better go and get that done, and then, it's just, look, I love that part of the bit. I really do love that part of the business. It's just amazing how we have that, to have the repeat customer, so many repeat customers over so many years.
Well, Gavin, what an absolute joy and honour to hear just a part of you and your family's story today on Deep in the Weeds. Please keep in touch and look forward to hearing more from you.
Yeah, well, look, thanks for having me on. It's a great honour, actually. And I couldn't believe that I was on a podcast. A lot of people didn't believe it when I was telling them some part of my family, and goes, "What's going on? You're becoming a celebrity." And then